Fall 2012. My Iowa History Project. I am Jack Sperry, and I am interviewing my grandma, Rita Condon.
Thanks, Jax. I do know a little bit about the Ice House, which is your project, because I am the education coordinator for the Cedar Falls Historical Society. You want to know a little bit about the Ice House?
Yes.
Okay. The Ice House we know now is not the first Ice House. The first Ice House was built way back in 1858, and it was wooden. And there was an ice house, and then they built onto the ice house, and they built onto the ice house. And that lasted from 1858 until 1921. And in 1921, there was a major fire in the ice house. Nobody really knows how it started, but within an hour, the ice house had burned completely down. The owner of the ice house, Mr. Hugh Smith, was bound and determined that the ice house was going to be rebuilt. Now this happened on a Friday night, and by Saturday morning he was on a train on his way to Chicago to meet with an architect to design a new ice house. Well, the week that he was gone, the men of the town got together, over 200 of them, and they cleared away all of the rubble there where the ice house had burned. It was already graded, so when Mr. Smith got back with the plans, within a week they were able to start rebuilding this ice house, and it was something wonderful and unique. Nobody around here had seen an ice house like that, because instead of making a rectangular or square building, it was designed to be round, because with corners in a building are where heat can come in or go out. So the architect designed a round building. It's 100 feet in diameter, 100 feet, and the walls are 30 feet high. And the architect said, we are not going to rebuild with a lot of wood. In fact, there will be no wood. So the floor is cement, quite thick cement. The sides are 30 feet of tile. And these are hollow tiles that would be built one course, and then they were reinforced with metal, and then another layer and another layer until it was 30 feet high. And the unique thing about this is, when they got it done, first of all, they got it done by January 1st. That very first year, they filled it completely. It was a good ice harvest. They cut enough ice that the ice filled it 30 feet up in the air. Then, because of safety reasons, then they put the roof on it when it was already filled with ice. So if a workman would fall, he would not fall that extra 30 feet. And they got the roof on in no time at all. And you've been there, Jack, so you know that if you stand at the bottom of the ice house and you look up, that the roof is built like an umbrella. There is a great big cement post that goes from the floor all the way up to the ceiling, and that is the handle of an umbrella, and then all of these spokes come out, and the weight of the roof is on that cement post. Now, the good news was we had a state-of-the-art ice house. The bad news is it only lasted about 12 years. Why? Well, first of all, they had a couple of years where there wasn't much ice. It just didn't get cold enough. There wasn't enough ice. And if you don't have ice, if you don't have a frozen river, you don't have ice. Another reason was, now remember, the ice came from the river. It wasn't exact. Well, of course, they didn't have a lot of the chemicals running off like we do today, but still, it was river water. There had been an invention where they could take clear tap water, clean water, and freeze it. So more people would want, of course, the clean water rather than the river ice. And then also, by this time, by the 1930s, there was a wonderful invention called a refrigerator. So for all of these reasons, the ice house as an ice house only lasted about 12 years. And then Mr. Smith could no longer keep it because people were not buying ice from him. The city took it over. What did they do with it? Well, the first couple of years they had horse and cattle auctions in there. In the winter, they flooded it and the people of the town could come down and ice skate down there. But most of the time, most of the life of our ice house building, it was rented by the Cedar Falls Boat Club, and anybody in Cedar Falls who had a boat could rent a space for their boat. So they didn't have to leave it in the river, they didn't have to take it home at winter time, and they had a nice boat ramp. You could get the boat in and out very quickly. So most of the time it was a boat warehouse. Now, the city never paid attention to the building, and the boat club didn't pay any attention to the building. And years went by, 30-some years went by, and one day a building inspector just happened to go down and look at the building. And when he got inside, he looked up, and he could see more blue sky than he could see roof. Well, he was a little upset. He goes back to the city council and says, that building has got to come down. We've got to condemn it. There are animals living in there. There are bats and raccoons and who knows what else. And there's no roof on it. About half of the roof is gone. So they were going to tear down the building. Well, about that time, the newly formed Historical Society said, no, wait a minute. If we could raise enough money to repair it, could we buy it? And the city kind of snickered and said, oh, yeah, go ahead. Well, a lady by the name of Mrs. Redfern said, we're going to do it. And by golly, they did it. They raised the money. This is the grandmother of your friends.
Benson.
Yep, Benson. And they had a big campaign. They raised the money, and it became a museum. Now, at first, people were cleaning out their attics and their barns, and there was just kind of stuff in there. But as time went on, it became a very nice, quality historical museum. In fact, they had to add a balcony. They had so many things. And then, 4 years ago, we had a flood. There had never been a drop of flood water in that museum, ever. But 4 years ago, the water came up, and up, and up, and up, and up. And it came up so fast, we did not have time to get things out. And we ended up with 4 feet 11 inches of water in the ice house on the first floor. When the water went down, we had a mess. We lost about 10% of the things on the first floor, and there was a massive cleanup. And then we thought, now what are we going to do with it? Well, it just sat for a year and a half before somebody came up and said, you know what? Why don't we raise the floor of the ice house an inch above the flood level? And these people sat around and said, raise the floor? That's a stupid idea. Guess what we did? We raised the floor, yes. We raised the floor an inch higher than the flood level. And it has been redesigned. It's not what you saw 5 years ago. The first floor is pretty much the story of ice and ice cutting in Cedar Falls. Got some nice displays down there. The second floor is the story of the importance of the Cedar River to Cedar Falls becoming a town. If the river wasn't there, there wouldn't be a town here. So it has come a long ways from being an ice house, an auction house, a boat storage, a funny little museum at first that developed into a quality museum, and now it's a totally different but very nice museum. And that's basically the story of the ice house. Basically the story of the ice house. So I hope you learned something.
Thanks.
You're welcome.